This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to our friends at Gulfstream Park. Gulfstream Park, champions start here. And that may be appropriate today as the Mucho Macho Man kind of kicks off the three-year-old scene down at Gulfstream today on a nice stakes card down there. So I thought we'd reach out to our friend Ron Nicoletti and get some ideas from Ron on some of the stakes action, including that Mucho Macho Man. He'll join us in the next half hour. We'll also be joined a little bit later on by Brad Free because the three-year-old trail starts out in Southern California as well. Brad covers the Southern California circuit for the Daily Racing Forum, but Coliseum makes the return today in the Sham out at Santa Anita. Coliseum, the super impressive debut winner at Del Mar in November for Bob Baffert, another potential monster from Baffert. They also have the San Gabriel, nice turf stake out there at Santa Anita today. So Brad Free will jump on and talk a little bit about that. Before we get to the first segment, however, let me remind you some of the promos and events coming up here at Capital OTB. Today, there's a $100 knockout challenge right here, Clubhouse Racebook. Come on down. Don't forget, it's not NFL Sunday, but you can watch the playoff games down here as well as they kick off this afternoon. So come on down for the knockout challenge, watch some of the football games, and of course, enjoy all the racing action. Clubhouse Racebook. 711 Central Avenue in Albany. It's also a 1% bonus day for Aqueduct wagers on your account. More information on restrictions and whatnot via the website, capitalotb.com. And I do want to give you a heads up. This is coming up on Thursday, next Thursday, Friday, and then next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There's going to be a bankroll bonanza. I like that. There we are sitting behind the pile of money. Mike Callahan, Sully Crotty, and myself. We'll each have, I think I have a couple of days. They each have one day, and we'll have $300 on each of those days for a bankroll. Come on down, see if you can get onto the bankroll team on any or all of those days, Thursday the 10th through Sunday the 13th, right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. 4 straight days of bankroll. Should be a lot of fun next Thursday through Sunday. We'll alert you to that as the week progresses. All right, I said a little bit later on Brad Free, a little bit later than that Ron Nicoletti, but we're going to start things out. If you tuned in on Thursday, actually, Alex Sausville was in here. A young guy from Scotia, currently at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program, but as part of that program in February, I believe, he's going to start doing some paddock commentary for Lido. A lot of the students go and help manage that local racetrack, small racetrack, and he'll be doing some paddock commentary. So we brought him in on Thursday to do a little handicapping during the OTB Live segment. Had a nice afternoon, nice little $18 winner at Delta that had me jump on board. As he talked about it, I thought, you know what, the buyers are a little light on this one, but lately raced early speed, the things he was kind of pointing out. And at that point, the horse was 12-1. So I jumped in and said, you know what, I'm kind of liking this horse you're talking about. Came down a few ticks, but still paid $18. So nice winner there. Nice cold trifecta as well at Turfway that I believe was $350 somewhere in there, and some nice ideas throughout the afternoon. But it'll be fun to tune in the simulcast signal and see a local product in the paddock at Rolito. But I thought, since we had him in on Thursday, I thought maybe we'd take a little time Thursday afternoon. We did. We set aside a few minutes and talked a little bit more in depth about the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. We've certainly talked about it on the program before, but I thought we'd get some firsthand knowledge from a student out there. And if you or you know somebody, family, friend, somebody that maybe is thinking in the back of their mind, boy, a career in the racing industry might be interesting and a path I'd like to follow. I just thought we'd have Alex talk a little bit about the RTIP, Racetrack Industry Program down at the University of Arizona and his experience. And then maybe it'll be information you can use or pass it on to other folks who, as I say, thinking a little bit about it. The list of alumni from that program is phenomenal, both on the back side and the front side. So up next, our new friend Alex Sausville talking a little bit University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program and more. Well, if you weren't with us on Thursday, you didn't get a chance to meet Alex Sausville, but I thought we'd bring him in for a Saturday interview as well, talk a little bit about the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. He's a student there now, and I thought some folks in the audience may be interested in pursuing that course of action with a racetrack career in their headlights. Good morning, Alex.
Seth, it's one amazing to be on.
Happy to have you on, and as I say, we're going to talk a little University of Arizona and their racetrack industry program. We had you on Thursday doing a little handicapping. Appreciated that visit. But why don't we start out just with the basics? How'd you become a horse racing fan?
I watched the OTB channel growing up. My dad had it on all the time. I could hear it when I was a kid, just in the house or whatever. Just could hear it in the background. Finger Lakes, Saratoga. Pretty much just with my dad through my grandfather, and I really jumped into it and took it into more of a path where I would want to take it up as a career.
And you mentioned your dad a basketball coach in the area with the state championship under his belt. You with the state championship under your belt as well at Scotia. Folks may remember that, and pulling up some information. You have the Class A record as far as three-pointers in the game, and I think Brian, our guy in the control room, may have pulled up a little montage of some of those shots, the three-pointers you were making. Remember your days at Scotia a little bit for us.
Oh, the wonder days. They were great. It's amazing when I go back now, and it's like I go to practice with Dad now. He's the head coach at Scotia, and it feels just like yesterday. And the community still gathers around the team and everything, but just the camaraderie from everyone, my teammates, the community in general, and just the school was amazing. And the run really was something to just, as it went on game by game, was something was just amazing for us.
A city, town the size of Scotia, to go to a state championship, it's one of those things that really everybody does rally around, and it's something that's memorable even years later, and wasn't that long ago. But then to have something like this on your record as well, the three-point shot record, it had to be a great career.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved one of my favorite memories of that game. Came off the bench after my last three. We were just passing the ball around with 2 minutes left. Had no idea there was any record involved or anything like that. And I make it, I come to the bench, my coach gives me a big hug, my dad does, and he looks at me and goes, "Why'd you shoot the last one? We're holding the ball." I find out about a minute later that was the record breaker, and I look back at him with just a big smile on my face.
And again, you wound up with the state championship as well and went on and played in college, correct?
Yes, I did. I spent 4 years at St. John Fisher out in Rochester, 4 great years, and then I made it to a much warmer weather in Arizona.
and talk a little bit about that. You got a degree out at St. John's Fisher, out in the Rochester area, and then, as I say, you wound up University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. We've talked about it before on the show. Certainly a long list of alumni that people would recognize. I mean, not only front side, but back side as well. Trainers and people in the main offices. Again, a lot of familiar names. And I guess one of the familiar names kind of pointed you in the direction of that. What drew you to the Racetrack Industry Program?
Well, actually, I went down to Florida, visited a woman from Ocala that I knew, who was just to talk about what my possibilities were for getting in the industry and stuff like that. So I decided to go down to Gulfstream, did a bunch of tracks throughout the trip, Pompano, Tampa Bay, multiple dog tracks, and went through Gulfstream and was fortunate enough to meet Pete Aiello, see him call a race. And when they mentioned the Racetrack Industry Program to him, he just was raving about it. And he loved everything about it and his time there. So through him, I got some connections to talk to some of the people in the office up there, and made my visit, and the minute I saw the program and saw everybody there, and I was hooked.
Yeah, and Pete, of course, an alumni, and Again, one of many notable alumni, and we've talked about it as well with him when we talked to Pete, and he is a proponent of it. You've been there first year now, right?
Yes, one semester down.
Yeah, one semester down and moving forward, and part of the spring semester, kicking things off. Talk a little bit about you and some of the other racetrack industry program people participate in a live racetrack kind of a situation coming up out there in Arizona.
Yeah, so we have our Rito Park meet starting, and it's 6 weekends, starting I believe February 9th, and it'll go into mid-March. Pretty much what it is, it's 12 racing days, about 8 races a day, and the students do just about everything. We are in the racing office, we're doing the on-air handicapping, we are pretty much any of the aspects that go into running the day is in charge of us. I mean, we have to do these jobs, and it gives us experience doing things that if we go to major racetracks who have people doing that with maybe internships or anything like that, we might not be able to get those opportunities. But we're very fortunate with the people who run Rito, give us that opportunity to really get that experience.
And if we pull up the Rito signal, simulcast signal, we'll see you in the paddock?
You will see me in the paddock. I'll be doing the morning show and the in-between races.
And as I say, for folks who weren't tuned in earlier, did some handicapping with us on Thursday afternoon. So we have confidence in you coming out of that, and I look forward to seeing you out there doing that. Talk a little bit again about the racetrack industry program. And what I'm curious about, the symposium is held out there every year. My buddy Steve Bick does his radio show out there. And just recently he was out there and interviewed some of the students and whatnot. It was interesting to hear them talk about the program. And explain to us, for instance, what are the classes that you take are maybe different from the people who are in literature or economics? How does the racetrack industry program separate itself?
It's funny how some of the classes are a lot of things you would learn in that setting. You learn like management, marketing. I mean, I'm a marketing major at my first school, and there's a racetrack marketing class I take this coming semester, but it's all based on the racetrack industry. I mean, just learning about different stuff that you would learn in a normal setting and stuff I learned in my marketing years, but put it into a racetrack setting. How are you going to draw people to the racetrack? I mean, I had one class that we spent the whole semester learning about the jobs you do in racing offices for all 4 breeds, which is one thing I love about the program is it's not just thoroughbred, it's not just one thing. I mean, we learn standardbred, quarter horse, greyhounds. We learn everything, and I think it's really valuable for a student who wants to learn and learn to be in the racetrack program that you know all 4 of those, because you never know where you're going to end up.
And again, I mentioned the symposium earlier. The symposium is also, the students play a big part in that as well.
Yeah, the symposium was amazing. I mean, it was hundreds of people, all racetrack people, presidents, CEOs of big-time racetracks, I mean, racing personalities. And it's nice you get to be in that aspect with them as the students. You're one-on-one with them. You get to talk with them. And I went up to people and just started talking. I had a really nice mentor luncheon. We got to pick one person. I was fortunate enough to do Scott Wells, the president of Lone Star in Remington, and he was amazing. Just was a great talk, and to talk to him multiple times throughout the symposium, introduced me to a few of the Lone Star people, and that's just the thing about the symposium, listening to the people talk on the different panels, a lot of sports betting, a lot of like how to draw people into the industry, positive effects with horses and stuff like that, but the off time, going up to people, and you got to be willing to go do it. And I was fortunate enough to be given the Turf Publicists of America scholarship, which was an honor, really, especially with being with John Asher, who as well won an award through them. And anytime you can be in the same company as John Asher, that's something special.
Yeah, that was congratulations on that. That's a nice honor, and certainly helpful going forward with the program. Talk a little bit about your industry career goals. Do you have anything specific in mind?
Well, I'm trying to tap into a few issues just as far as drawing people to the racetrack. I have a marketing background, so it's kind of in me already, but especially with some of the stuff I want to do at Rito, running some of the events, but also getting the people involved, get them more involved with horse racing. And then instead of just they show up to the track, they make their bets, get them involved with the horses, show them around, do some pre-work before the meet to show that the sport in general is more community-based than just showing up.
Yeah, you're a young guy. Talk a little bit about that and other folks in the program. And I know, like you, there are other people in the program who are maybe a little older who have already had their college degree and decided, hey, here's a career path I'm interested in. But overall, I think it's a younger demographic. And talk a little bit about that in Friends, and you grew up in the Saratoga area. I think a lot of people have that stereotype of it's an older demographic that appeals to the racing game, but particularly now, I think it's become more and more apparent with social media. It's not really that older demographic. There's younger people too who are excited about horse racing and are going to help it move forward.
It just has to be a different market we tap into. There's a lot of draw to it. I mean, especially with my friends going up to Saratoga. I mean, not that they know a ton, even a lot of them, but they'll go up there, they'll enjoy their time, they'll bet a little bit, and they'll have a wonderful time. I mean, for the most part, and when I was in Rochester, not a ton of people knew racing. They knew that Finger Lakes was there, but they hadn't known much about it. But when you're here, when you grow up near Saratoga, people just love it. And that's the amazing thing about visiting a lot of different racetracks, which I've done, is you see things that you won't, like you see a different thing in every place. I mean, I've seen some places at small harness tracks that have done things better than any track I've ever seen. So there's different avenues to take with each track and with each like breed pretty much. Based on that, you can take different promotions, different avenues and everything, but there's definitely a draw to it that we need to tap into, and something I hope to tap into at Rito Park this year.
And you're going to be out there, obviously, again, we'll look for you in the paddock working out there, but I pulled up some info on you. Our friend Mike McAdam in the Gazette wrote an article about you, I think it was 2 summers ago.
2 summers ago, yep.
2017. You worked up at Saratoga. You were a gapper. Explain what that is for people who don't know.
So pretty much what my job was to stand right next to the gap in the morning where the horses came on and communicate with trainers, riders, anything to help the clockers get workout times, get the names, and then I would communicate the times back to the trainers so they would know. It was a really, really cool experience, especially for someone who hasn't really been around that kind of backstretch before, to get to meet people. I mean, I made some great friends, people who work for Ian Wilkes, Ron Moquette, people who are traveling now, and I see them up at Saratoga, and they're friends for life. They really are. And it's just those people you meet, the people you talk to in the mornings, especially the ambience of Saratoga at 5 a.m. is very special.
Yeah, and I've said this before with our show up there live in the summertime. All the biggest names in horse racing are golf cart ride away. That's why we love doing the show up there from the backstretch. But if you're going to be a guy who has a career in mind in the industry and you want to make some connections, no better place to have a job than Saratoga.
Yeah, really, it was perfect. And I mean, the days were wonderful. My last day was a little interesting. We had a loose horse get away, and I tried to go close the gate, and a little wet, the horse decided to turn at my gap and almost went right through my chest. Yeah. But luckily, through a dive away, I got away, and somehow the horse, after going up through the rail where breakfast was not a scratch on him. So that was the amazing part of it. But
we have the backstretch set. We have in the last couple of summers had a couple of incidents. One where a loose horse, and we're on the air, and you can hear, and the tent's kind of enclosed, but you can hear enough commotion, you realize something's going on. And then we looked up at one point, and coming through the opening in the tent was the loose horse. But he, at the last minute, he decided he didn't want to join. Thankfully, he didn't want to join us on the set. But yeah, it can be interesting up there in the morning. He also was a Jimmy Bond horse, and they caught him successfully a couple of minutes later, and he didn't have any problems either, which is the end we certainly like. Talk a little bit about, you've mentioned you and your dad, and you've kind of alluded to it, visited racetracks around the country, so you've got a good resume of tracks you visited so far.
I have. My goal is to see everyone in the country, and that includes the live ones within the parimutuel area, which gives me a little bit of a understanding of where to go. But there's been a lot of live tracks I've been to. I mean, I've been to Keeneland, I've been to Del Mar, I've been to Gulfstream, and I've been to some of the smaller ones. I've been to Thistle, I've been to Turfway, and visiting those tracks, you get a feel of everything. I mean, some of the best experiences I've had have been at places like, I went to Grand River this summer up in Canada, and I have never seen a crowd the way they did it. I mean, I called for a reservation to go sit in their restaurant, and they told me they were booked for 3 months because they had wiener dog racing that day. And it just, for all the tracks I visited, I was blown away. And then like just some of the ones that are past in the places like Green Mountain or Great Barrington or any of those, it's just, I mean, it's an amazing feeling to be at a track. You can feel the history that was there, and you're the only one there. Now, you do have to avoid, you have to get in and get out because you're probably not supposed to be there, but they're amazing places to see, and a lot of them are still there, they're still standing, and they still have everything where you can tell this was the heart of racing, right here, where this was.
Yeah, our friend Frank Vespi at the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com, and Linda Doherty writes for him, and they're doing a series now on I think he calls it Ghosts on the Track, or it's racetracks that are no longer racing, but it's interesting because obviously at one time they were thriving, and it's kind of fun to go back because for a lot of people they remember those days, and for folks like you who maybe never were around when those tracks were going, it's a good look back at history. So I recommend that series at theracingbiz.com. But as you say, there are a lot of them, certainly up here in the Northeast as well. And if you go to these smaller tracks, I always say, people, Saratoga is special and Del Mar and Keeneland, but the smaller tracks are what really develop fans. And as a marketing guy, you can probably relate to that. That what gets us into the game is that showing up at the track and watching live. And so, people kind of say, well, if these smaller tracks disappear, what will that, how big a difference will that make? Because we'll still have Saratoga and Gulfstream and Del Mar. But I think the smaller tracks pull the people in because the live experience is really what plugs you into the game.
Oh yeah, some of the small tracks that I've been to, some of them had very little crowds and some of them had huge crowds. I've heard great things. One of the top tracks I want to go visit is Canterbury Park, and I've heard great things about Canterbury. Yeah. And that's a small track, and it's up in Minneapolis, but they draw people. They get people interested in the racing, and it's incredible, some of these small places. Even Rito is one of the smallest tracks you can find, and you'll find them 4 or 5 deep for some of those quarter horse races on the rail. People have told me in the program, you wait to see this crowd. And I'm like, it can't be that big because it's such a small track, and it is. They love it.
And marketing is your game, and I think that's what a place like Canterbury, I read about things they do, and I think a lot of it is the marketing that pulls the people in. And that's what you want. You want the people to get to the track, get the experience. That's what's going to draw them into the game, cashing a couple of tickets and having a fun experience out there. With all the track visits, favorite track?
Ooh, tough. My favorite track I've ever been to, Arlington.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because there's not a bad seat at Arlington. And when you're sitting there, I was there for the Million, I will say that. And I've been at tracks whether it was their big day, like Charlestown, I went to the Classic, or I've been to places where, I went to Mountaineer on a regular Monday. And there's differences, but Arlington was a beautiful facility, beautiful track, great turf racing, and there is not a bad seat in the house.
That's what everybody says. I've never been there. I've never been to Del Mar. I really want to get to Del Mar. And it used to be a problem with the overlap at Saratoga, but now with the fall meet, I'll have to get out there. Because I like that factor that the beach is right across the street.
Oh, it's a fun little sit in your seat, track here, beach there. That's a nice little setup.
I like that. Alex, again, we appreciated the visit on Thursday and the talk this morning a little bit. Again, to alert people, and I'll let you give a recommendation. University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program for folks out in the audience who may think, hey, that's a career direction I would like to go in, or parents of people maybe. Talk a little bit about the program and if you would recommend it.
I would absolutely recommend the program. It is just amazing how much experience the people have there, the alumni that are there, and just what you learn. You learn things that I've been around racing, doing this stuff for a long time, just on the side at the track with the form in my hand, and we do a class looking at the form, and I'm learning more stuff every day. And it's nice the big thing for me was the fact that you can connect with other students. We have about 30 students in the program. It's a very small program, but they come from all different backgrounds. One of my friends is from Arkansas. I have one from Iowa, one from Arizona, one from California, New York. They're all over the place, but the common connection is that we love racing. And whether that's people who came for thoroughbreds, came for quarter horse, there's a love for racing, and you connect with these kids. And I've made some great friendships in 3 months out there, and I look forward to being back to do much more out of it. And the experience and everything, it is well worth it to go out there.
Yeah, everyone I've talked to who's been associated with or gone through the program gives it a big thumbs up. So again, I would tell people if that is a thought, that career path is a thought, certainly explore it a little bit. Plenty pickup out there?
From time to time, I've gone down, and I'm a little rusty.
Yeah. I play the old man basketball a couple of nights a week, so I'm always rusty at this point. So.
I'm waiting to get back out of that rust. It still hasn't happened.
Alex Sawsville, again, we appreciate the visit last Thursday, and wish you luck going forward with the racetrack industry program. We'll look for you in the paddock in a few weeks.
Thanks, Seth. I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, thanks to Alex for his visit on Thursday. Really appreciated that. Wish him well going forward with his time at the University of Arizona and then potentially a racetrack career ahead. And we'll look forward to him in the paddock at Rolito. Again, I think that kicks off next month, so that'll be a lot of fun. And as I mentioned, if you or you know somebody who has the thought of a career on the racetrack industry program is a great place. They have a nice website, University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. You know, some of the alumni, Pete Aiello, as Alex mentioned, the announcer down at Gulfstream, Pete Rotondo, who works for the Breeders' Cup. We've had him on the program before. Jim Mulvihill, who was with the NTRA, now he's working for Churchill. Those are racetrack industry people, but guys like Baffert and Pletcher, also graduates of the program, so the backside as well. So again, keep that in mind. If for you or somebody you know has that kind of thought of a racetrack career, I thought we would get some firsthand talk about that from a current student. All right, we'll head to a break. When we come back, again, a little bit later on, Ron Nicoletti, because a nice day of stakes down at Gulfstream Park today. But first up, Brad Free from the Daily Racing Forum, because again, a couple of nice stakes out at Santa Anita as well. And a potential monster from Baffert making a return in the Sham this afternoon. We'll talk about all of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Come on!
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, we are joined now by Brad Free from the Daily Racing Forum, covers racing in Southern California. And again, a big day this afternoon out at Santa Anita. Brad, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Yeah, we got a big day out here. A very competitive grass stake for older horses at 1 1/8. And we get to see a very promising 3-year-old make his stakes debut a little bit later on in the Sham. So a good card today at Santa Anita. And fortunately for us Southern California horse players, the rainstorm that was originally expected to arrive early this morning has been delayed. So it's not going to begin raining until later on after the Saturday card is in the books. So we're looking forward to a dry, fast, and firm conditions today.
And, of course, we're here at 10:30 in the morning on the East Coast, 7:30 in the morning out there, so we appreciate it. And I laughed when I texted you yesterday. I said, it's an early start, so if it doesn't work out. And you said, 7:30, it's like sleeping in for me. And then I laughed and said, I looked at your Twitter feed, and I saw New Year's Day, and I pulled up the shot for the guys in the control room to put up the sunrise, first sunrise of the year, New Year's Day. You posted this on your Twitter feed, mountains in the background, the sun coming up. I can't wait. It's one of the tracks I haven't visited. My buddy Steve Bick raves about Santa Anita, so I definitely want to get out there. But this picture of the sunrise reminded me, As opposed to other tracks, I'll get your opinion. I just get the feeling from reading about Santa Anita and Clocker's Corner, there's kind of a different morning culture out there.
Oh, Santa Anita in the morning is my favorite place to be. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. And the cool thing about Clocker's Corner at Santa Anita is you don't have to be a celebrity to mingle with the racing celebrities. A couple weeks ago, this is a fun story. A couple weeks ago, I bumped into a couple of friends of mine out at Santa Anita at Clocker's Corner, and it was a relatively quiet morning, and they never come to the racetrack at all. So we're just sitting there chatting, and Bob Baffert walks by and said, "Hey, Bob, I want to just quickly introduce you to a couple of my friends. They are longtime racing fans." And Baffert stopped and began chatting with these, regular Joe Blows off the streets. And he spent a half an hour just telling stories and just regaling them with, funny, humorous tidbits. And it was great because when you can, just bump into Bob Baffert and have a conversation with him, jockeys are out there, other trainers, John Sadler, Neil Drysdale, you name them all, and they're out there. And it's just a fun place to visit with people. There's no pressure. There's no, horses to saddle. You can watch the horses train, have conversations with just about anybody. So it is an absolute blast. I suggest, Seth, you jump on a plane and get out here as soon as possible.
Yeah, I have two nephews who live out in L.A. right now and kind of work in the movie television industry, and I just haven't had a chance to get out there, but certainly that is on the list. Also, before we get to the two stakes races, I wanted to bring up, because I pulled up one of your Bradfree reports, a nice video feature on the Daily Racing Form. And before I talk specifically, how often do you do that? How often is that posted?
I record it every Friday. It's going to be every Friday. I think I'm going to take a week off in a couple weeks, but just about every Friday. And I try to talk about things that don't often get a lot of attention. This week's theme was, how to evaluate jockeys, and it just came up with a very simple, basic method for, using the jockey statistics as a handicapping tool. I don't normally look at the jockey until after I've, addressed condition, class, pace, and speed, but there's no doubt that sometimes, jockeys do make a difference, and the question is, how do you quantify that difference? And so that was one of the subjects of this week's video, but it's posted every Friday at drf.com, 10-minute video, talk about a subject, maybe take a look back at an impressive win. We saw one by a good filly named Anyuket last weekend, and then look forward to the stakes races. And then I have a thumbs up, thumbs down segment toward the end where I just talk about something that deserves some plaudits and maybe some things that aren't so great. So it's a fun little segment every Friday at drf.com. It's called the Bradfree Report.
Yeah, I recommend it. And the one I pulled up was jockey related. And you talked about a couple of new jockeys on the scene out there. One that's familiar to us here on the New York circuit, but one maybe not so much. Talk a little bit about Joel Rosario, based out there this winter. That's going to be very interesting. But Andrea Etzeni, I think maybe unfamiliar to people, also based out there this winter. Talk about those two out there at Santa Anita.
Yeah, Joel Rosario, he's actually, returning home. I mean, California is kind of where he got going, and it was too bad for us that he went back to New York and had so much success back on the East Coast. But he's back here this winter with his longtime agent, Ron Anderson, and a terrific addition to the jockey colony. And Rosario is one of the strongest finishers in the game. He gets horses up at the wire, and he's fun to watch ride, and he's added some depth to a colony that probably needed a little bit of refreshing. So it's nice to see Rosario out here. Of course, it doesn't hurt at all that he's the regular rider for Breeders' Cup Classic winner Accelerate and the current Kentucky Derby favorite Game Winner. So that's a couple reasons why Rosario decided to spend the winter out here, and he's already made an impact. He's up in the top 3 in the standings along with Flavian Pratt and a very promising young apprentice by the name of Heriberto Figueroa. So Rosario, he's already on a roll. He's making an impact. Not surprising for us out here because we are already familiar with him, but a guy that we're not familiar with. And I think this guy's going to come with a long shot winner sometime before he returns back to England. His name is Andrea Etzeni, and he's an Italian jockey from the same area that Frankie Dettori came from. He rides in England, Etzeni does, and he's over here for about 6 weeks or so, month and a half. And some of the British trainers, Simon Callahan, Neil Drysdale, are already giving him a shot. He's not going to make a huge difference as far as impacting the jockey standings, but this guy can ride. And if you go back and look at a couple of grade ones that he won at Woodbine this last fall, this guy can finish, he can weave through traffic, and he's going to jump up with a price or two before he goes home. And he'll be out here for, I think, until sometime middle or early February. But Andrea Adzeni, if you're looking for a price, maybe Adzeni might be a good guy to look toward. I look forward to watching him come with a winner or two before he goes home.
Yeah, and you had mentioned on the report, we like to pay attention to Woodbine during this season, and that nice weekend they have up there in October. He won the E.P. Taylor and the Canadian International, which is a pretty good double to have on the international scene.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this guy's going to make an impact. He's ridden, I want to say, 24, 25 Grade 1 and or Group 1 wins. He's widely perceived on the international front to be one of the rising stars of the international jockey circuit. So he's ridden in Hong Kong. He's made an impact in England, and this guy's going to be fun to watch his career unfold. And you never know. Sometimes these guys come out to California just to get a little dip their toe in the water, and then they go, you know what? That was pretty nice riding in all winter long in a place that doesn't normally get cold. Flavien Prat did it a few years ago, and look where he is now. He's one of the top jockeys in Southern California, a Frenchman who came out here for a short-term basis, went home, and decided to make California his permanent home. So who knows what's going to happen with Adzeni, but once you ride out here in California and get a taste of this welcome winter weather, it becomes a lot more desirable when you go back and face the rain and chill of other locales.
Yes, they're going to be interesting to watch, certainly this winter, a couple of additions to the jockey colony. All right, let's talk about the stakes this afternoon. We've alluded to it. Nice turf stake in the San Gabriel. Let's start out with that one. Chicago style for Tommy Proctor, coming out of a win at Del Mar, albeit at 1.5 miles in the Hollywood Turf Cup. The San Gabriel is 1.8 miles, so we'll see how the cutback works out. Flamboyant, close up third in the Berkeley up at Golden Gate last time, but ran second last year in the San Gabriel. But I pulled up the Shadwell Turf Mile from October. We're going to watch the number one Next Shares get it done. We'll get it done at a price of 23-1. But gets it done pretty nicely with a 107 buyer figure. Subsequently tossed in a dud in the Breeders' Cup Mile. But if you look down the past performances, there are other triple-digit buyers for Next Shares, and they're at Santa Anita. So I wonder if the return to Santa Anita and maybe a little more time off after that Breeders' Cup dud rebounds Next Shares to what we're seeing here in the Shadwell Turf Mile. What are your thoughts on the San Gabriel?
Well, if Next Shares reproduces the Shadwell Mile, I think he will flat win the San Gabriel this afternoon. There's a couple of challenges facing Next Shares. First of all, I asked trainer Richard Baltus, what was the difference in Next Shares? Because he, out here in California early last year and last summer, he was just a, nibble around the edges, hit the board, just kind of a horse that runs around the track and maybe picks up a check. But when he went back to Kentucky, he turned into a completely different animal. Now, when he won the restricted stakes at Kentucky Downs, it was a restricted stakes. He was arguably the class of the field, and he won very well with a 99 buyer, a 0.5 on Thoroughgraph, a big number. And he came right back and reproduced it in the Shadwell Mile. So I asked Baltus, what was the difference in Next Shares when you took him back to Kentucky? And Baltus believes that it was the cut in the ground that made the difference. Next Shares is the type of horse that likes a little bit of give in the ground. Not a lot of give, like he caught in the Breeders' Cup Mile and completely misfired. But he wants a little bit of cut in the ground. Now, the challenge this afternoon is the rain that was supposed to arrive is not going to arrive until after the San Gabriel, so this race will be run on a hard, firm turf course. Not that Next Shares can't win. I still think he's the most probable winner, but he faces a challenge with regards to footing, and also I believe that the difference between a 1 mile race and a 1 1/8 mile race, especially on grass, is like night and day. Sometimes these blast home milers occasionally can lose their punch at the longer 1 1/8 distance. Now, despite those challenges, footing and distance, I still think that he is the best horse in the race. I know he's training super. We talked about Rosario, and when Rosario rides for Baltus, it's a super live go. So Next Shares to me is the horse to beat. With regards to Chicago Style, I'm not sure if he likes Santa Anita as much as he likes Del Mar. He's a killer down at Del Mar. His 2 starts at Santa Anita, perhaps not quite as impressive, but he has the credentials to win. Liam the Charmer is back on firm going. He does like Santa Anita, 4 for 8 over the Santa Anita turf course, and there's an X factor in this race. A long shot trained by Phil D'Amato. His name is Cleopatra Strike. He's 8-1. D'Amato entered him in a 2 other than last week, and he did not draw in from the also eligible list. So that is why he is in the San Gabriel. But this horse is doing very, very well. He will not embarrass himself this afternoon, Cleopatra Strike. I don't think he's good enough, but at 8-1, I'm not going to let him beat me. So those are the main contenders. I like Next Shares, Liam the Charmer, and at a price, Cleopatra Strike. And if Chicago Style, the morning line favorite, pops up and beats me and proves that he likes Santa Anita as much as Del Mar, well, then I'm just going to be wrong about this race. A very deep, deep race, the field of 10. You could probably make a case for almost everyone in this lineup.
Yeah, as you were talking about Cleopatra Strike, I had a couple of check marks next to that one already. The 2 most recent workouts kind of stand out for that one, too. Indicates the horse is on its toes, so a nice little price there. Potentially could make it interesting. All right, the 9th race at Santa Anita this afternoon. The Sham, as the calendar turned, the 2-year-olds became 3-year-olds, and we're now on the way to the Santa Anita Derby and potentially the Kentucky Derby, and we've alluded to it earlier. A potential monster, another potential monster, the guy, embarrassment of riches, Bob Baffert. I had him on a few weeks ago, and we talked a little bit about Coliseum. We're going to take a look at the Maiden Breaker back on November 17th at Del Mar. Coliseum's going to be the number 2 horse. And you can't win any nicer than this in your career debut. Chart margin of 6 3/4, the 1-2 favorite in the Godolphin Silks. In a scheduled field of 7, looks to have just this field over a barrel if this effort can be repeated. The others have a little more experience, and some of them have some stakes experience, but I think all eyes are going to be on Coliseum to see if he can put a couple together and get a stakes win under his belt. Your thoughts on the Sham?
Well, based on how Coliseum has been training over the past several weeks at Santa Anita, there's no doubt regarding this colt's pure, raw ability. When he won his career debut, there were some question marks going in. I know he was the 1-2 favorite, but Baffert wasn't sure that whether or not this horse had some gait issues that he might need to overcome because he had not broken all that well from the gate going into his debut. Well, he broke like a shot, and he ran away from the field. Now, the 2-3 finishers from that race have both returned to run, and you couldn't find them with the searchlight. So Coliseum, he probably didn't have a whole lot behind him, but when you go 123 for 7 furlongs at Del Mar first time out, there's no doubt regarding this colt's ability, and his workouts over the Santa Anita racetrack since then have been sensational. One of the things that Baffert and jockey Joe Talamo will have to deal with as this colt begins to mature is getting him to settle down a little bit because he wants to take the bit and fire away. Now, there's no shortage of speed in this race. Savagery has speed, and so does Coliseum stablemate much better. So it'll be very interesting to see how the pace scenario unfolds and if Coliseum can ration his speed. I think that he can. But I do think that he does have some lessons still to learn. And over the last 8 years, this race has been one of the most formful stakes races at Santa Anita. Favorites have won 6 times of the last 8 runnings. And one of the second choice won another one. You have to go all the way back to 2012 to find a long shot winner. The Sham Stakes is typically won by the chalk. Coliseum is the best horse going in. I expect him to win today. No secrets as the even money favorite, but I think this is a very good colt, and we're going to find out if he has learned how to ration his speed and how far he can run. That was a 7 furlong maiden special weight that he won first time out. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But whenever Baffert has 2 horses in a race, I always want to take a look at the other higher odds horse. And Much Better, who completely misfired in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He had an alibi. The ground was yielding. He also did not break well. He came back with one of his eyes practically shut because a clod had hit him in the eye. But Much Better has trained super since returning to California. He's very fast from the outside post. He's going to have to go. So Baffert has a couple of speed horses in this race, along with Savagery. It'll be interesting to see how the pace unfolds. You don't want to come from too far out of off the pace on the Santa Anita main track around 2 turns. This is a speed-conducive, speed-friendly racetrack, but Baffert has a couple of good ones, led by Coliseum, the most probable winner, but at a price. I respect the speed and the recent workouts for much better in the Grade 3 Sham.
Yeah, the whole scenario there, as you say, the other Baffert, turf to dirt, makes that one intriguing, to say the least. A couple of nice stakes today out at Santa Anita. Brad, appreciate the visit. Again, I'll tell people to pull up the Brad Free Report, as you say, every Friday via Daily Racing Form. Find your work at drf.com as well. Brad, again, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Seth. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Brad Free from Southern California, again, with a couple of nice stakes races today out at Santa Anita. Coliseum being the horse that all eyes will be on for Bob Baffert. 3-year-olds also highlight the action down at Gulfstream Park. Nice stakes day there. We'll take a break, come back, and see what Ron Nicoletti thinks about some of those stakes right after this. Stay tuned.
50 yards, heavily priced. Here's the line. One Dreamer wins and scores a huge front-running upset under Gary Stevens. Heavily prized was second. You have just witnessed a felony.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Runs at him with 1 furlong to run. They've left flat out behind. Fort Larned digs in. Mucho Macho Man runs at him. Fort Larned, Mucho Macho Man. Fort Larned with the heart of a champion.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Racing across America on this Saturday morning. As we promised before the break, joined now by Ron Nicoletti. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Ken. How are you?
Very good, and looking forward to a nice afternoon of stakes action down at Gulfstream Park, highlighted by the Mucho Macho Man as we get on the Derby Trail. I just had Brad Free on. We were talking about Coliseum in the Sham as they head to the Santa Anita Derby and potentially the Kentucky Derby there. This will be kicking things off at Gulfstream towards the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby a little bit later on. It's always fun. I always say what's so fun about the Triple Crown, it gives us in horse racing a defined season to look at. I think the 2-year-olds are kind of preseason, and the next 6 weeks or so are kind of the regular season. You get into March, it's the playoffs, and then we have the Triple Crown, and things kick off with the Mucho Macho Man. Looking forward to it this afternoon. Before we jump in, give us an idea what we're going to look at weather-wise.
It's a fast from a beautiful day in South Florida. It's cooled down a bunch. We're in the mid-70s right now. So we had a little rain last night, but we still have the fast mid track and the firm turf course. So looks like it's going to be a fantastic day of racing.
All right, let's jump in and kick things off. Race number 5 at Gulfstream, the Ginger Brew. 3-year-old fillies, obviously. They all became 3 when the calendar turned on January 1st. 7.5 furlongs on the grass. Pivotina certainly looks very good for Graham Motion. I like Fortunate Girl as well, off a nice second-place finish in the stakes debut last time for Mark Casse. But I'm going to pull up a maiden special from December 6th at Gulfstream Park. Number 10 is going to be What a Beaut. And I talked about it on the handicapping show that day. I talked about it the next day. How did we let a Gary Barber, Mark Casse horse get away at 53-1? And it was a strong field, no doubt, but still you had to jump in and put a little bit of money on this horse. So What a Beaut, I think, is a little light on the buyer number, but I'm not going to be surprised if this horse runs big this afternoon. What are your thoughts on the Ginger Brew?
Well, that was a pretty nice performance where that was. The horse loomed up with Paco on it to score. I went with the 2 box foot in there. I thought Broker Maiden sprinting on the grass and turned back to 7.5 today. Ended a 2-year-old campaign with that really good allowance victory on a mile and a 16th on the slop. Eddie Keneally, Brian Hernandez Jr., daughter of English Channel. I just thought that was the way to go.
Yeah, I have that one down at the bottom of my mix, and I'm not going to be surprised if we get a good performance there too. I'm going to be interested to see, as I say, what a Butte does, though. I just kind of kicked myself again. Mark Cassidy and Gary Barber and $100. How did that happen? That's just crazy.
You can't worry about that stuff after it happens. You got to put it away. I've been in that exact world with you.
Exactly. All right, the 7th race this afternoon, the Glitter Woman. These are 3-year-old fillies on the main track. Fancy Dress Party certainly looks like the one to beat off the first couple starts of the career up in Kentucky, Keeneland, and Churchill Downs. We're going to watch the allowance optional claimer career start number 2. Fancy Dress Party will be the number 9 horse here. Wins by a chart margin of 2 1/4. But I also thought Midnight Rose was interesting off the win last time against optional claimers. Brunette Princess from the rail with John Velasquez on board comes out of a nice maiden breaker. Love My Honey's interesting with some stakes experience under the belt. Not positive stakes experience, but I'm not going to be surprised if this horse maybe gets back to what we saw in the career debut up at Saratoga this afternoon. What are your thoughts on the Glitter Woman?
Well, I did go with Midtown Rose, and they're making a 3-year debut. She reeled off those impressive back-to-back starter optional claiming scores for Saffy Joseph Jr. Got the Prentice in there, Romero Mirage, of course, riding without the bug in this race. And you're right about Fancy Party Dress making a local debut for Ben Kovac. Brooke, she looks like the one to beat. Now, Brunette Princess, I got some interest in that one at 9-2, mainly because Johnny V will be in the saddle today, and Gustavo Delgado does a good job. So one of the horses I definitely will leave off my, X-Acto or trifecta ticket.
You mentioned a name, and I talked a little bit about it on the handicapping show that we did earlier with my colleague Brian Edo. We were talking a little bit at Gulfstream, and he was handicapping, and we mentioned Saffy Joseph. I have to admit, he didn't hit my radar until maybe a couple of months ago, and part of it was you guys in the paddock commentary and whatnot certainly mentioned his name a lot. But I recommended on the handicapping show, keep your eye on this guy. To me, he's an up-and-comer, and certainly with the high percentage now, people are becoming much more aware. But I think Saffy Joseph is a guy that you really have to keep your eye on.
Yeah, does an excellent job. If you watch the racing at Gulfstream throughout, last year, the summer, mainly in the, when we went over to Gulfstream Park West, he does a great job. And you're right, he's definitely an up-and-comer and always someone you have to look at. He plays the claiming game really great, so that helps him too.
Yeah, it's one of those where you give it an extra check mark when his name's there. All right, the Kitten's Joy, the 3-year-olds on the grass, the subdivision I like quite a bit, have for the last 4 or 5 years. The Kitten's Joy is at 7.5 furlongs down at Gulfstream. That's a 2-turn race. I put Henley's Joy on top. We're going to take a look at the pulpit from December 8th. Henley's Joy is going to be the number 2 horse. Wins pretty easily at 6-5. But again, on the handicapping show earlier, we were talking with Brian Addo, and we both kind of agreed. Henley's Joy, the one to beat. But at this trip, the outside post position is going to be no bonus. So we'll have to get some position early under Tyler Gaffleone. Louder Than Bombs is interesting to me. Moon Colony off the optional claiming win last time. And I'm not going to be surprised if Bourbon in May, despite the buyer numbers that are a little bit light, I'm not going to be surprised if that one contends for Todd Pletcher as well. What are your thoughts on the Kitten's Joy?
Well, I did go with Henley's Joy, and it's post 9, and I just think that post 9 is about my limit when you go 7.5 furlongs. That's really tough to stretch it out. So Henley's Joy on top of my ticket along with Moon Colony at $400,000 son of Uncle Mo, Mark Cassidy, Jose Ortiz, who had a couple of wins yesterday, and Louder Than Bombs on my ticket just because he ran against Henley's Joy, looking to turn the tables on him.
All right, and finally, let's go to that 3-year-old race we talked about earlier. The Mucho Macho Man for the 3-year-olds, kicking off that 3-year-old season down at Gulfstream. The 1-turn mile. I put Mijos on top. We'll go to Aqueduct Maiden Special Weight event. In the second career start, breaks the maiden for Jimmy Jerkins, does it with a nice 80 buyer figure. Mijos is going to be the number 2 horse in here. Now has been down training at Palmettos for Jim Jerkins. I'll put that one on top, but Code of Honor, obviously. coming out of the second place finish behind Complexity in the Champagne, is going to be the horse that takes a lot of action. Garter and Tie and Trophy Chaser, interesting to me. It may be a little bit of value, but I took a shot with Mijos, although, again, I recognize Code of Honor, potentially the one to beat. Your thoughts on the Mucho Macho Man?
Well, what I liked about Code of Honor, if you remember his race at debut at Saratoga, he just went to the lead, went wide to wide.
Yeah.
Count on your hand anytime you see a Chuck McGay horse,
yeah.
Break out of the gate in its debut and go wide to wide. So to me, that this horse had some class. Then he had that trouble in the Champagne City. Second one, like the last one. One of the horses you touched on is a local horse here who actually went to the Breeders' Cup, and that's Well Defined. This one is back on its favorite service, won the $400,000 in reality. I toyed with putting this one on top, but I went with Code of Honor. But I think you got to use Well Defined. And you're right about neither the horse on the outside, lead horse for Jimmy Johnson. I might have missed that one. Maybe should have had him in third. But I kept looking back at Well Defined. Well Defined. I think this horse is going to run very well. Put a line through the Breeders' Cup. No horse for course angle.
Yeah, I going back to that race 2 back, I took a serious look at that myself and kind of could have pulled the trigger there. We'll see how it plays out, though. As I say, a fun day down at Gulfstream with nice stakes action and the 3-year-old scene kicking off. Ron, as always, appreciate the visit. And if we don't talk to you in the meantime, we're going to see you in about 3 weeks.
That's fantastic. Can't wait.
Pegasus. So we're looking forward to that. And it looks like, as I'm reading the articles, certainly with Accelerate, we're already in good shape. But it looks like it's shaping up to be kind of a fun field.
Yeah, it's going to be a great betting race. Like the past Pegasus where you had one, Cadillac coming in.
Yeah.
This one has actually got a handicap, so I think it's going to be a great race to bet.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Ron, as always, appreciate the visit. As I say, we'll talk again.
You got it.
Ron Nicoletti from Gulfstream Park. Again, nice stakes day down there. We didn't touch on the Limehouse. That's early in the card, race number 2. So 5 nice stakes highlighted by that Mucho Macho Man out in Southern California at Santa Anita. The Sham, we'll see if Coliseum can be that potential monster for Baffert. So we appreciate a visit also from Brad Free. Top of the show, Alex Sawsville, who, again, sat in with us on Thursday, student out at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. And so hopefully we brought you a little information about that might prove useful if you or you know somebody who has thoughts of a career in the racing industry. All right, I'm going to step back and make some notes and whatnot for this afternoon because we'll be back in an hour and a half or so with OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon. Again, a fun afternoon of racing at the various venues. Want to remind you once again, here at the Clubhouse Racebook today, a $100 knockout challenge. Swing on down and participate. Also, you can watch the playoff games here, the NFL playoff games kick off today, and, of course, all the racing action. 711 Central Avenue in Albany. 1% Aqueduct bonus also today if you wager through your account. Check out the restrictions at capitalotb.com. And just a reminder, the $300 bankroll bonanza. Gotta like that. $300 each of the 4 days you see listed there starting next Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next week. We will have a $300 bankroll each day. Stop down right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Put your name in the hat. Try to get on the bankroll team. We'd love to be playing for you and hopefully winning some money for you. 711 Central Avenue in Albany. We'll remind you more about that as the week goes along. Gulfstream Park, want to thank them for their sponsorship. Gulfstream Park, champions start here. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. As always, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your participation. And we'll be back in about an hour and a half or so with OTB Live for Saturday afternoon. See you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.